Hi, Mandy. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Stu. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us today and lending some of your expertise to the ASB membership. I'm sure they'll get a lot out of it. Hey, to kick off, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and a bit about your business, Made?
Well, I'll start with my background. So I've been in marketing the last 20 years, and I have been lucky enough to work for some pretty incredible brands, both domestic and international. I started my career working for Virgin and progressed through retail, many different sectors actually, retail, media, food, and I finished my corporate career at Compare the Market, so insurance, an insurance aggregator. So because I'd had a wide-ranging background in many different industries to which I really loved, I've never really been loyal to one industry. I decided that I would start my own business, which is when Made started all the way back in 2016. And so, over the years, as any business does, we've evolved. But in simple terms, Made is a brand and marketing agency, and we work with growing brands. So my history in marketing has been heavily focused in the brand space. And so obviously, naturally, Made focuses a lot in brand building. And, our main proposition is we take brands from position A to position B. So we help move them in the direction that they need to go in as they're growing. Because as businesses grow, the brand needs to evolve. So that's what we do today.
It is, and that's really where you and I first came into contact, wasn't it? Really, when the MOI brand needed a bit of love and attention.
Absolutely. So, obviously we started working together 3 years ago when you'd come on board. Yeah, when you'd come on board at MOI as the general manager and, wanting to see the brand take the next step, I guess that was my interpretation. We got together and talked about the huge opportunity that laid in front of MOI, and really the focus has been over the last 3 years building the MOI brand. Well, really, because the brand itself, remembering that a brand isn't just a logo or how it looks, but the MOI brand itself had made a lot of great traction prior to that. And, there were a lot of customer success stories, and the business in itself was growing very well. But, and this is the usual scenario we find ourselves in, the brand itself hadn't caught up. So, my role was really to take the brand to match the ambition of yourself and the future MOI trajectory. So, and it's been fun. And we've done a lot of cool things. Well, I think so. Over the last 3 years, we've transformed the brand. We've given the brand some life. We've given the brand some personality. We've changed the packaging. We've really dialed up the marketing. As I said, Made really thrives in that space of working with growing businesses. And so, really taking the brand to the next level. And, we've still got more work to be done, but it's been a really exciting journey, certainly for me and the team working with you.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been a lot of fun, and it's always hard to measure because obviously you need to go out and do full-on sample surveys to really try and get an understanding of the impact. But yeah, I think unquestionably the brand is in a far different position to what it was 3 years ago, and in a very positive way. So I think that's been great. So taking into account that the ASB is made up of a membership of corporate organisations not dissimilar to MOI, major baking industry manufacturers and what have you, as well as a lot of smaller operations, be they plant manufacturing or whether they be bakery shops in the traditional sense per se. So bearing that in mind, give me your 3 must-dos from a marketing focus for our industry going forward.
Well, I always say to clients that before you start marketing, and by that I mean marketing is going to cost you money, right? You need to invest either time or money to start marketing your business. But before you start marketing, you know, think about, do I have a brand worth marketing? And this is what gets grossly sort of misunderstood. People think that building a brand is about, you know, I've got a logo, so I have a brand, which is not the case at all. Because when you start marketing, there are some key things that you're trying to do. The key things when you start marketing your business is, one, becoming known, right? Creating awareness about your business, being able to say that is MOI International, right? Being aware of MOI International, because if they're not aware of you, you're not even in the consideration set. You know, when the time does come to purchase product or consider your product range. And so you need to think about, you know, what are my brand assets and are they recognizable? And it's not fluffy. This is not fluffy. This is science-based marketing, where before you start marketing, if you don't have a brand that's worth marketing, you don't have brand assets that are recognizable, you don't have any sort of connection between the brand and a visual identity, then you're making it hard for people to know you. And that's the whole point of marketing. The first step, make it easy for people to know you. So make sure you've got a brand worth marketing. If you think about, you know, and I know everyone talks about Brookie because she is, you know, she's become very iconic in the baking industry. But if you think about the one thing she nailed from the beginning, and that is strong branding. Okay, she has her social media, her website, everything that she does is branded. Now you might think, oh, okay, well, we don't have branding. Anyone can have branding, strong branding. And when you think about it, if you're a baker, every baker and his dog is making a vanilla slice, is making a donut probably. How do you make yours stand out when you go to market those products? Now, I know most bakeries are thinking, well, I don't market, you know, we get the foot traffic, but you could, if you want to grow your business, there are avenues in which you can promote your brand. And that's one thing to think about. But don't go down the path of, you know, I'm just going to start social media and we're just going to slap some images of our product. And, you know, it's very hard to differentiate between vanilla slices. Think about how you can brand every post even. You know, come up with a palette for your brand. Make sure you've got a logo. Try and make it distinctive so that people know that that's you. So that would be my first thing. Make sure you've got a brand worth marketing, because marketing is going to cost you money, either in time or physical money. And then secondly, I would say that, you know, every man and his dog has an opinion on marketing. Right. And I am sure that your little bakery down the road, or even your manufacturing business, you know, everyone would say to you, you have to be on social media, you have to do all of these things. You know, that's just, we're moving with the times. Now, don't get me wrong, there's an element of truth in that. But my second tip would be, you have to build your marketing around your resources and how much money that you have to invest in marketing. So don't try and do all things and spread yourself lightly and do a terrible job just because someone told you have to be on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and you've got to do all these other things. You've got to do email marketing and whatnot. Pick a lane. If you don't have a big budget and if you don't have in-house resources, find a channel that you can commit to and just work on that channel. And whenever you're thinking about a marketing channel, make sure you think about your customers, because that's who you're trying to reach. That's who you're trying to reach, and that's who you're trying to impress, your customers. So try and think of something, because to be honest, if you don't have a full-time social media manager, you will not make traction on social media, because social media is a tough game. It costs money, the algorithm changes, you know, to produce videos. If you don't have a character or a personality, you know, a lot of things where people create characters within their business. If you have an ambassador, or if you have someone that just gets on Facebook Lives and tells a story or shares something that's not really commercially orientated, yes, you can drill up some good coverage and some good support. But if you're just a bakery, you know, who's wanting to promote, come down to our bakery, we've got this particular vanilla slice on the weekend, and I would recommend people think more about how they do it and do one thing really well rather than 10 things really badly.
Yeah.
So that would be my second. And I guess, I know we're talking about the baking industry, but there is so much to learn from other people. So I always think, look for inspiration everywhere, to do with your business. That may not be directly related to your business, but they can help your business. Look for ideas. If you've ever been on Twitter or X or some sort of platform and something has made you laugh that a company brand or a corporate brand or a product brand or any kind of brand has done, think about why that made you laugh and think about how you can relate that to your business, because there's just so many different ideas out there and people doing wonderful things. And like I said with Brookie, I mean, she's got people lining up to her store because she's integrated, her digital presence with her shop front, and she's branded it well and she's made it popular. What is she doing? How did she get there? So I always think, make sure you're looking around and seeing what other people are doing, whether they're in your industry or not. And yeah, think about why that felt like it worked.
Yeah, I think that's a terrific idea. And we know ourselves, some of our customers are involved in groups of bakeries, and they share ideas and share troubleshooting and all of that sort of thing. I'm sure most of them are sharing marketing stuff as well, but there's certainly no reason why they shouldn't be, right?
Definitely. And, like as a business owner, even taking my marketing hat off, like, don't be afraid of your competition, because I feel like if you do a good enough job at what you do, because remember, no marketing is going to fix a terrible service or product. No marketing is going to fix that. It'll fix it for a second and then the customer will be let down when they get there and are disappointed. But if you can get your service, your products right, if you can find some sort of signature move for your business, for your bakery, and really own that, I do believe that there's more than enough for everybody. Like, you just have to give people a reason to choose you over others. And, you have to think differently about that, because there are a lot of bakeries, but at the same time, I often liken it to restaurants. Why is it that some restaurants last and others don't? Well, the ones that I believe work, that I see, it's because they've picked a niche, they've picked a lane, and they have dialed up that experience. It's like a brand. Create a brand, own a distinctive feel, a distinctive look, but you've got to own it, which means you've got to proactively build it, commit to it. It's the little things like making sure your website has a look and feel, or a tone of voice. I know I'm using marketing jargon now, but make it sound like you. Tell your story as a business. How did the company start? How did your bakery start? Share your story, share your faces. It's that kind of thing that no one else can be you as an individual if you are the person that started the bakery. So bring that story to the forefront. And I think the more that you can do that, back to that restaurant analogies, these restaurants own it. So you'll have a Mexican restaurant, they have Mexican staff, they have modern day Mexican takes, the presentation is amazing. Those are the types of restaurants that really find a niche or really own their difference, I believe, win. And so that's what I would, don't be generic, pick a lane, find a niche. And doesn't mean you have to, I'm not saying people need to, redo things that already exist and are doing well, but find a way that you can make it your own.
Yeah, okay, that's great. One last question, and it's a question without notice, but I think it's relevant, and I think you'll have good advice. A lot of our members would be on social media because that's one thing that's relatively simple and cost effective to set up and what have you. So my question is around that, and it is this: it is negative comments on social media. Do you engage or ignore?
Oh, absolutely engage. Don't be afraid of negative comments, because you know what? The only way you can better your business is through feedback. And, you might get to a better, because of that feedback, you've been able to finesse a product to make it even better. Don't shy away from that, because that's just showing it's in a public forum. So you're better off almost trying to control it by responding in that way. Now, you can divert people to contact you via email so that it doesn't have to be this public, back and forth. But always show, really sorry about this experience. We want to fix it, but we need to know more. Contact me here. So I think you're always, unfortunately, we live in a world where, people will say things to you that they wouldn't say to you in person because they can have anonymity, and because they believe that it's within their rights now, So unfortunately, business has got that, but always meet it head on, I say.
Cool. All right, I think that's good advice. Hey, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. We might get you back on down the track at some stage.
Okay, sounds great. Nice to talk, Stu.
Cheers. See you, Mandy.
Bye.